Well, at the end of the day, the big thing about having these hearings is to let everybody speak on areas that they might not be comfortable with the bill. It's a good thing that they're having the public hearings. I think what is more important is that they're a little more expeditious about making sure that they address everything that's brought up. But at the end of the day, any bill that comes out, that finally gets signed into law, that does not create a completely transparent and, for all intents purposes, automated process of allocating what is the commonwealth, is not going to help this country. You cannot have a system where people don't know the simple steps and the cost of acquiring an asset. That's all it is. We can try and shroud it in all sorts of mystery. And all we're doing is buying a license to acquire. There should be a clear process where people go and bid, and at the end of the day, we know who bid the highest, we know who bid the lowest, we know who got it. Anything that does not follow those tenets is just creating further problems that's just going to manifest itself down the road.
As Christy mentioned, this has been a long, drawn-out process, well over almost 2 decades, really. Do you get this? Are you optimistic that we're coming to a point where whatever is the outcome of this process, we'll get significant investment into Nigeria's oil and gas sector?
Well, am I optimistic that it will? Yes, it will give people a playbook to play with. And the fact of life is, oil and gas, mining and what have you, people in those businesses, the companies in those businesses, whether they like it or not, are used to playing in, how should I say, morally ambiguous circumstances. You know, there is nowhere where there is mining, any kind of extraction of wealth from the ground where there are not some clouds hanging around it. And you can look across the world. So these people know how to deal with this. They'll move on with it. But one thing I do honestly believe is this bill is not going to be signed before the elections. It's not. Because if you look at it from the point of view of the ruling party, I'm not going to sign a bill that anybody in the opposition party can go back to his constituency and say, look what I won you. I'm not going to do that.
So it's safe to assume that until next year,
no, because
nothing's going to happen.
They have nothing to gain. They have absolutely nothing to gain by getting this bill signed, and they have everything to lose on the ruling party side. On the opposition side, it's the same thing. You also don't want the bill to get through so that the ruling party can claim, hey, look, we delivered this that wasn't delivered in 20 years. In how many years of PDP? We delivered it in 4 years of APC. They're not going to let it pass through.
But then the public hearing currently going on is, like you said, an opportunity to get stakeholders and interested parties to air their views. And trust me, in the past 48 hours, we have seen a barrage of views, dissenting opinions, very little of them agreeing. One of them that really jumps out is that for the argument on who gets the most control, power, of course. One of the arguments against the PIB 2012 was that it gave all the powers to the minister. Now, as part of measures to get over that gridlock, so to speak now, the Senate proposes a commission that would sit, but the provisions in the 2018 PIGB transfers all the powers to the commission. Now, one of the dissenting opinions is that this could create a loophole where whoever the president is could actually nominate himself as the head of this commission, the power tussle. What does this mean for you?
Again, go back to transparency. What you see here is people trying to push things to become transparent. Why don't we have a simple process where we bring in people that know oil and gas? There are people out there that are consultants that know how to value oil and gas assets, and they're known globally for this. Why don't you bring those people? Everybody put in their bids. Like in anything, technical competence, financial competence, it goes through. We don't need all these commissions. This is a commercial transaction. The only thing we need to make sure is that the person that's going to do this has the technical ability so that they don't go there and cause oil spills and things like that devastate the host community. That's all we need to know. So what you see here is just people trying to create darkness, and in that darkness, all sorts of things could happen. If they make it very transparent and simple, we won't need all this. It'll be 2 lines.
Interesting point. Okay, but we've been reminded, I think, yesterday with all these calls about potentially impeaching the president, that politics really is something that will probably cloud everything we're going to do over the next couple of months. To what extent do you think this is going to really detract from, the economic development and progress that we need to see in Nigeria, given that we're still seeing very slow growth at this time?
I mean, it's definitely going to have a major impact.
We should simply assume that that's going
to that's normal. In every African country, that's just normal. Because everybody wants, in fact, now, more or less, globally, it's normal. Once there is a question as to leadership and direction of a country, everybody holds off on long-term plans until they know who is going to be there, what direction they're going to take, and what rules they're going to play. You don't want to make long-term goals based on one set of rules and have the rules changed on you along the way. So for all intents and purposes, the more noise they make going into the elections, the more cautious people would be. If the elections were just taken as just another thing and we didn't have as much noise, we wouldn't see as much of an impact. And just to let you know that this is not a Nigeria thing, look what happened to Italy. Italy had problems in their government. The business pretty much died off. Italian bonds traded off, and the yields were significantly above the euro. Once people started to get an idea of where the government was going to, the business started coming back to usual. So the less noise we make, the better for us. But unfortunately, it seems like we're just incapable of going through things as a normal process.
So for you, it's about creating processes that are transparent away from the darkness, quote unquote, now, according to you.
Everybody loves transparency.
Now, to what extent would you say there is a need to actually factor in the locals, the stakeholders? One of the dissenting opinions also comes from the leaders, the traditional rulers from the Eket federal constituency, and they are asking that as part of the processes to passing the other subsets of the law, they should create a Petroleum Host Communities Development Trust Fund.
So I have a special affinity for host communities. I went to secondary school in River State, and I've seen the devastation of what unchecked oil and gas exploration has done to those.
So that's been a reality for decades.
That is a reality for decades. Now, here's what I say. We should, and I think the Vice President said something interesting on our World Environment Day when he said all foreign companies should apply the same rules of recycling when he was talking about plastics that they've applied globally to Nigeria. We should do the same thing in oil and gas. We should ask ourselves, if Royal Dutch Shell goes to drill a well offshore Norway, the same practices they have there should be exact same practices here. Because once they do that, at least for the host communities will preserve the environment and preserve their way of life. Now, the development side, I think the development side is one thing that will come. I don't necessarily think it should be, again, one of this whole community set aside money so a group of people can sit and decide where it goes. I think it's just a case of oil companies will make themselves comfortable. If they feel comfortable in a community, they will put everything around them to stay comfortable, and that will develop the community. And then it's up to the community to make sure that their state government does their job. To now carve out a separate pot for those guys to control, I don't think is the best. I don't think, again, it's good for transparency.
Before we let you go, we really have to get to your comment on the market's rebound. Well over 2% higher yesterday after an 11-day lull. Are you a believer? Do you think we're about to see a sustainable rally here?
No, I don't think so. We're going into the summer months. Summer months tend to slow down as normal. I think what we're just seeing is a couple of people running back into some stocks that have gotten very cheap. But for people that are looking to make investments now, in general, Nigerian stocks are cheap. There are a lot of good banks, especially on the bank side. There are a lot of good tickers that are out there that you should be looking at putting your money in right now. And then a lot of people are still kind of salting away some money waiting for the MTN IPO to happen.
Right.
That is the big party, and people are getting ready for that.
No, that is